How much weed would a wee duck grow? If a wee duck could grow weed, a wee duck would grow as much weed as a wee duck could grow if a wee duck could grow weed. How much weed would a wee duck smoke? If a wee duck could smoke weed, a wee duck would smoke as much weed as a wee duck could smoke if a wee duck could smoke weed. How much weed would a wee duck toke? If a wee duck could toke weed, a wee duck would toke as much weed as a wee duck could toke if a wee duck could toke weed. How much hash would a wee duck stash? If a wee duck could stash hash, a wee duck would stash as much hash as a wee duck could stash if a wee duck could stash hash. How much cash would a wee duck stash? If a wee duck could stash cash, a wee duck would stash as much cash as a wee duck could stash if a wee duck could stash cash. How much grass would a wee duck stash? If a wee duck could stash grass, a wee duck would stash as much grass as a wee duck could stash if a wee duck could stash grass. How much weed would a wee duck stash? If a wee duck could stash weed, a wee duck would stash as much weed as a wee duck could stash if a wee duck could stash weed. How much skunk would a wee duck stash? If a wee duck could stash skunk, a wee duck would stash as much skunk as a wee duck could stash if a wee duck could stash skunk. How much cock would a wee duck suck? If a wee duck could suck cock, a wee duck would suck as much cock as a wee duck could suck if a wee duck could suck cock. How much twat would a wee duck suck? If a wee duck could suck twat, a wee duck would suck as much twat as a wee duck could suck if a wee duck could suck twat. How much twat would a wee duck fuck? If a wee duck could fuck twat, a wee duck would fuck as much twat as a wee duck could fuck if a wee duck could fuck twat. How much ass would a wee duck eat? If a wee duck could eat ass, a wee duck would eat as much ass as a wee duck could eat if a wee duck could eat ass. How much prick would a wee duck lick? If a wee duck could lick prick, a wee duck would lick as much prick as a wee duck could lick if a wee duck could lick prick. How much dick would a wee dick lick? If a wee duck could lick prick, a wee duck would lick as much prick as a wee duck could lick if a wee duck could lick prick. Thanks. How much head would a wee duck give? If a wee duck could give head, a wee duck would give as much head as a wee duck could give. A wee duck could give head. Woo! How much head would a wee duck get? If a wee duck could get head, a wee duck would get as much head as a wee duck could get. If a wee duck could get head. How much twat would a wee duck give? If a wee duck could give twat, a wee duck would get as much twat as a wee duck could get. If a wee duck could get twat. How much dick would a wee duck suck? If a wee duck could suck dick, a wee duck would suck as much dick as a wee duck could suck if a wee duck could suck dick. How much twat would a wee duck eat? If a wee duck could eat twat, a wee duck would eat as much twat as a wee duck could eat if a wee duck could eat twat.